Hello and welcome to episode 129 of A Gamer Looks at 40. I'm Bill Tucker, and we have reached the end of the road. This long Final Fantasy VII journey. We have been plotting for what feels like 3 months. Because yeah, it's been about 3 months. It finally comes to a close today with the second half of our odds and ends episode. I was going to do this as one large one, but I can't in good conscience release 3-hour episodes. The format of this show just doesn't lend itself to that. So here we are with the back half of that episode. Starting us off is Julian from the Stage Select podcast talking about materia and a bunch of other random things. And then Kyle from the RPG show shares some poignant and terrifying memories.
Hey, have you ever summoned Bahamut Neo?
Yeah, right, exactly. Was it Knights of the Round? Is that the thing? I forget.
Well, I never got Knights of the Round. I never did all that stuff.
Oh, I was doing a guide when I played it, of course. But yeah. It's interesting to say the materia system. I am not somebody who really, and I've said this before in this Final Fantasy series, I never historically loved the job system. I liked having my characters with roles, and I never liked the idea of potentially doing the wrong choice and spending the time leveling something the wrong way. For some reason, though, again, as a 28, 9-year-old, when I played Final Fantasy VII, I really dug the materia system because I was in the mood for the time for something simple, but give me the illusion of complexity. I felt like I had control over a very simple system that made sense. It wasn't crunchy. It wasn't like, relics and espers and 5 different things. And you're right, as we're talking about it, there really is it goes a completely opposite of the job system, really. There is no job per se. Like you said, it's just a blank slate of characters ability-wise. However, I like the materia system in that it was very simple and it gave me the feeling of complexity, maybe. I don't know. I always felt like I liked that. And I'm not someone who typically really digs diving into my character's stats and trying to optimize it, unless it's Fallout. That's a different story. But other than that, that's not my thing. And I just like playing with what I'm presented sometimes. But for me, it was a nice balance as a casual kind of Final Fantasy fan. Yeah,
I think back then, I really I understood the basics of the materia system, but I definitely didn't get into the nitty gritty of it. Like I've since learned that I missed out on a lot of really interesting things that you can do with combinations of certain materia and stuff like that. And if you really are dedicated to it, you can kind of finagle each character into a role if you set them up just so. But I did not grok that at the time.
No. Well, not to go too far afield on this conversation, but I just want to touch on one thing because I do think it's interesting. In those days, in those kind of mid 90s to 2000 era, it was almost like a console overload. Because I remember in Game Pro, and I was a big Game Pro person because that's what my parents got me a subscription to. I always liked EGM better, but I was a Game Pro person, so I had. But they always had a section for the new console rumors. So having the idea of just another Sony has a new console, Philips has a console, this place has a console, the new Sega console, there's this add-on. So we were kind of console crazy in that era before everything just became 3 players basically. And so like you said, it wasn't a far flung thought to think, oh, this is just another 3DO or a CDI.
Yeah, go look at the cover of an issue of EGM from around 1995 and look at the platforms that they cover on the top of because they would have them listed right above the title. And it's so many things.
Final Fantasy VII, again, is your first experience, first time you played it. What about do you remember any standout moments for you that really kind of stick out to you from Final Fantasy VII that kind of changed the way you thought about games? Because Final Fantasy as a series was very good at that. At least for me, right? Changing paradigms of games. Is there any moments of 7 specifically for you?
Yeah, there are. So I have a couple that I wrote up here, specifically for seven tactics, and actually three that I can cover quickly. And it's more of a way that I do talk about the games, but it's more like my perspective at the time around it and kind of how things formulated. So, so I'll start with seven. No surprise, Final Fantasy VII is Final Fantasy VII. People like it. It's really good. I was about 11 when it came out. A lot of fond memories of the game. All sorts of crazy ones, like I said, with my friend at the sleepover. I remember as a young teenager, I really couldn't sleep very well. So for some reason, I decided, you know what's a good idea? Let's get to level 99 before the first boss. See how far I can get in that. Just in case. Level 43. Level 43 before my memory card wiped. And then that was enough of that. But, you know, this was exactly, yeah. Things like that. They just happen sometimes. Boy, actually, funnily enough, I probably beat the World of Balance on Final Fantasy VI 8 or 9 times before I finally beat the whole game because of lost discs or saves. Funny stories.
Wow.
But going back to
so your consoles are cursed. That's what you're basically trying to tell me is you have cursed
a little bit, yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I was playing on the Super Nintendo that I still actually have sitting behind me right now. So
nice. Excellent.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, but for 7, you know, that was 1998. I guess a little bit of a different time now, but I can remember rooting around on like Angel Fire websites, looking for fan theories and looking for like weapon fight strategies for the first time. You make a bunch of save files with friends. Changing the background colors was pretty fun for a lot of us. You know, you just been like, I'm going to do this one magenta or whatever, and you know, like change those up. Hot seating the controllers to level up materia. Final Fantasy VII actually for me was a big one. I made an account on Game FAQs specifically to post on their chat rooms for it. So way back in the day, I would do the trivia contest they'd have. Screen name Omega Monkey. This is going way back, so if anyone remembers that, you know, good for you. But just a lot of different fond memories of this game. And you know, I got married, got kids now, got my wife to play it a couple of years ago, and that was just, you know, bringing things all together. It's like, it's nice to just look back and smile and see that this one of these games that I played as a kid is still around 20 plus years later at this point, or, you know, so it's just kind of cool to think about that, you know, the story was so engrossing at the time. I was just able the ways to make it entertaining, you know, even now to play, and I still go back to it just to have the nostalgia around it.
Yeah, 7 is really good about that, and 7 is an interesting artifact. I played 7 as an adult. I never had a PlayStation, so for me it was 6, and then, you know, Square went the Sony route, and that was the end of it for me until the PS2 and X. So I missed out on like 7, 8, and 9. I played 7 as an adult and could still really appreciate it, but I never had that initial, other than going to friends' houses and seeing the opening scenes and just jaw dropped at the visual marvel of all of it. Coming up next is the Let's Play Princess of the Nerds, a broadcast podcast where we talk about the sensational music of Final Fantasy VII, an aspect we have not talked enough about, honestly, along with some gameplay elements, ultimate weapons, and some final thoughts. Obviously, Final Fantasy VII is a huge experience. Final Fantasy VII was a phenomenon. Like, that made the PlayStation 1 legitimate. It was a quantum leap technologically from 6. I mean, you know, again, as much as I adore 6, and 6 is one of my favorite gaming experiences, full stop. 7 was just a quantum leap. What about 7? If you had to pick like one or two things that really grabs you as a young person, as a kid, like, here's why I love this game, and then maybe expand on to why you still love it now. I'd love to hear that. There's a lot, I know, but if we could just like nail down again, put yourself in the mind of a kid.
One thing I can think of is there's a specific song in Final Fantasy VII, and it's not the one you're thinking of, I can guarantee you. that has stuck with me over the years, and I even learned to play a little bit of it on the guitar when I was learning the guitar.
Ooh, okay.
And that is Interrupted by Fireworks, the song that plays when you and Aerith go on the Gold Saucer Date. Yeah. That was the first time, besides Mega Man X4's Frost Walrus Stage 2, where I went, oh, video game music can do an emotion in musical form.
That's very interesting. The music is always, I can't imagine any Final Fantasy game with bad music. That is a very emotional scene. And music definitely carries that because, again, your characters are not voiced. So you're just kind of reading text and just sharing a moment with those two characters as they kind of float in this moment of calm and fun, and it's a carnival, right? Like, I almost evokes emotions of kind of that young love almost. It really is a very poignant scene, and I love how the music definitely carries that. It's load-bearing in really any Final Fantasy, but especially at that moment.
It definitely, I want to say at some points it even feels a little bit foreboding.
Okay.
And nowadays, God, with Rebirth coming out sometime at the end of this year, if they recreate that scene, have you played the modern one, Final Fantasy VII Remake?
I can't get around to it. I don't know.
Okay,
and I have not, but no, I don't. Yeah,
there's a little bit of a thing in the game. I hope I'm not spoiling too much.
That's okay. It's
but
fine.
It's called remake, but it's less of a remake and more of a pseudo sequel. There's clear hints that say that both Aerith and Sephiroth are everything's going back to point 0, or I guess point 5 because Crisis Core still exists as a prequel. And I'm trying to think of the best way to word this.
Okay, take your time.
They definitely feel on and off like they are aware of the original timeline. That they are from a point post-Advent Children in the live stream, and somehow use the live stream to go back in time. Because you get like flash forwards and all these other little things in Remake. Okay. Mm-hmm. And now that I'm hearing Interrupted by Fireworks in my head, that scene is going to be so much more foreboding in Rebirth than it originally was. But at the same time, there's a high chance that they originally planned. And maybe it was planned, and that's what you're supposed to feel in the original, that there is that foreboding. Because while it is this sort of happy little romance song, there is a little bit of melancholy mixed in there.
That's a really good point, because I was just kind of scrubbing through it very quickly while you were talking. There is this, I don't want to say sense of dread, but it's not the sort of thing you would expect. Like, you wouldn't play this on a date.
It's happy notes, but they're played in a slower, more somber style.
Yes, it's almost like it's not in a minor key, I don't think, but it has that kind of vibe, right? Where it's in like that, it's in a key where it has a bit of that sad. It kind of lilts a bit. It lilts. It kind of like it doesn't bounce. It wanders
and staggers there for a little bit.
Yes, it wanders
especially
and staggers.
At the
point
where it gets 66% or 75% through the song, it goes ba da da. Ba da da da.
Yeah.
That's definitely a lot more somber and melancholy than I would expect from a love song, which the rest of the song does feel at points, especially when there's this cheery carnival going on.
Oh, I know. It's
fireworks,
so great.
Happiness. Ha ha.
But this kind of understand, and I think thematically it matches too, because there's at that point, everyone kind of understands what's going to happen. I mean, we don't obviously know what's going to happen, but there is an adventure ahead. There is so this is like a respite. And that whole Gold Saucer is like a respite. We're going to take a breather break and just enjoy ourselves before the next leg of this journey that the characters are on. So,
and it's not too far after that you go to the Temple of the Ancients, right? And Kate Sith does his little sacrifice for the black materia.
It's not that far later. So it's just kind of one of those it's like the final, not final fun moment, but this is the moment, the calm before the storm, I think. And I think that song captures that really well. Because it's a beautiful song, and it's one of the greats for a reason. I also want to talk a bit about the mechanics of the game as well, because I really think I really love the way Final Fantasy VII plays. Again, turn-based, of course, ATB, of course, but I think the materia system is one of my favorite leveling systems or progression systems in the entire franchise. I always found it extremely elegant and interesting. What's your take on materia?
They're great. They're still great to this day, and they still work even in Rebirth. They knew not to mess with something that already worked. You still have the green materia, which is your basic spells. You have blue materia, which is kind of like, I don't want to say blue is basic abilities, because I think that's yellow. Red materia is your summons. The purple materia is your weird stuff, like make this fire spell into my basic attack.
Right.
It will attack everyone. Stuff like that. They knew not to mess with a bad thing. Or with a great thing. And then the best part is the fact that they themselves level up. That you get AP.
That's true. That's actually a good point, too. Everything kind of levels itself. I just like the idea of the customization that you can do is really interesting. You can have different slots and armor and weapons. And you can really customize what your character does. I think it's it's a great. I think it's a better melding, honestly, than Final Fantasy VI, where Final Fantasy VI, basically everyone ends up the same, essentially, right? You just equip Espers, everyone has the same magic, and away you go.
Everybody has the same magic, but their stats are going to be slightly different because the whole Espers also give you a weird stat bonus. Oh man, a +1 to strength per level while it's still equipped.
Right, but I know when I did that though as a kid.
Nobody knows that. It was kind of like just, how so like later on I bought the book. I think it's Prima Guides for Final Fantasy VII, and even that doesn't mention some of the other stuff that's in the game that's very well hidden, like the ultimate weapons having these weird stat bonus things. Oh, if you have full health with Cloud while he's wielding his ultimate weapon, you do double damage. Stuff like that isn't in the guide.
That's weird. That's crazy. That's what I bought the guide for all the advantages. You have to be there. Please. That's funny.
We didn't have the internet back. Well,
yes.
We kind of did, but it wasn't that big of a thing.
It wasn't the internet that we have now, the capital THE. I totally agree. I think it plays fun. I think it's a really fun playing game, and I just love the customization of materia where you really can craft your characters in a more, I'll say, obvious way than Espers, because Espers always were very again, it was like a hidden thing. Like I had no idea growing up you'd be every time you leveled there was like a +1 speed if you had this on, right?
Because it didn't matter. You just went, okay, now everybody's gonna have Kira. Okay, now everybody's gonna have Ultima.
Right. Everyone needs Yep. Everyone has to have these certain spells, and that's what we used it for. But you can also break Final Fantasy VI if you know what you're doing with the Espers too. Like you can create some pretty overpowered characters using those stat boosts.
Don't tell me this.
That's what I hear. I haven't gone through and done that, but that's what I've heard through my exhaustive Final Fantasy VI conversations. What else about Final Fantasy VII really strikes you as important or just meaningful? It's
the first time that we ever had the limit system.
Yes, you're right. That is a good point. Yeah, the first ever limit system. What's your take on that? And already
they were kind of messing with it because you had the sadness status effect, which made it fill so much slower. And then you had the Berserk, or not the Berserk, because Berserk makes you attack. No, that's confusion. Yeah, it's Berserk. The Berserk meter makes your limit fill a lot faster, but you're taking more damage as a result because it's 100% based, or mostly based off of how much damage you're taking. It's a retaliation attack. And how diverse they made that. Yeah, especially with Kate Slith. Oh, have slot machines. Have some dice rolls.
I love a good dice roll in the midst of a game. Although it's funny because games are based off of that. But it's for me. I'm like I need something. I need a guarantee. I can't risk this turn on a dice roll or a coin flip.
Chocobo Bill, you need to play Dicey Dungeons.
What is Dicey Dungeons?
Dicey Dungeons is a roguelike where the game automatically rolls the die for you and then says, okay, where would you like the damage to go?
Oh,
So you're putting on equipment that is like a boomerang. It does double damage, but you take the normal type of damage. So if you put the 6 into the boomerang, it'll do 12 damage to the enemy, but you're going to take 6 damage.
That sounds so weird and strange and kind of cool, actually.
It is really good.
That sounds really cool, actually. That sounds lots left to randomness, but yeah, that sounds like a very freeing game where I could just like not worry as much about that sort of thing. Just like, okay, randomness. I kind of dig that. Any other big moments you remember fondly from that, even as an adult when you play it again?
I remember going around the world trying to chase after Ultimate Weapon. And the very first time we actually see Ultimate Weapon in, I think, Medial, the whole fissure in the earth, or I guess Gaia in this situation, opening up, swallowing both Tifa and a kind of vegetable state Cloud into the actual life stream where they are just reliving the memories and trying to piece together Cloud's psyche.
Yeah, Cloud is a character. Yeah, that is definitely a big moment. It's an impactful one as well. Cloud as a character. What's your take on Cloud as a character?
Cloud is an interesting character because in a lot of ways, Cloud isn't a character.
Yeah,
That's
fair.
Barely a soldier. He's just this guy who's kind of implanted himself with Zack's consciousness or memory. It's so hard to explain and figure that out, like what they're actually going for even today.
It's almost like a forced... I'm trying to think of a good way of describing that Cloud. It's a forced identity stealing, almost.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't mean to steal Zack's identity, but he kind of did. But he didn't mean to. Not his fault. It just happened. It's very strange.
And now, half the time, Zack's talking in his head. And that's the coolest thing is, even at the very beginning of the game, when you're setting up the bomb, those text bubbles are showing up. But they're not even in text bubbles. It's just floating text.
That's a good point. It's a very good point. That's interesting. I love how it's such Cloud has always been to me a weird character to kind of identify with because he's so varied and interesting. But as I've kind of been researching and reviewing Final Fantasy VII, I really dig that idea of he's not a pawn in this. He has some agency, and towards the end, he finally gets, that drive. Like, yes, let's save the world, like the hero vibe. But it takes forever for him to get to that point. He can be pretty insufferable at times, but when you understand why, it makes all the sense in the world. He has two people talking in his head at all times.
Yeah,
I'd be cranky too.
He's got the Sephiroth and he's got the Zack.
Yeah, it's wild. It's a very interesting character as a main protagonist. And would you consider Cloud to be that main central protagonist? I don't know.
I wouldn't consider this game to really have a central protagonist in essence.
Yeah,
at a point it becomes Aerith. There's a good amount of the time where we don't even have anybody except for really Tifa and some other characters. So Tifa becomes the main protagonist for a while. I think it's more just about the party.
Yeah, I think it's about the overall story and the overall themes that it's trying to convey, for sure.
I mean, sure, you have the final battle, but the final battle cutscene, whatever you want to call it, is less of Cloud cementing himself as a main character and more of Cloud cementing himself as an individual apart from Zack and Sephiroth.
Right. Yes, and that's kind of the main theme of that ending, where yes, Cloud is now his own person. He's officially his own person. He's no longer tied to these two people. Any other like final thoughts on Final Fantasy VII?
Man, some of the mini games in the Gold Saucer, like I love the Gold Saucer theme. I can stand around for hours in Final Fantasy 14 just listening to that while doing something else instead of actually playing Final Fantasy 14. But at the end of the day, while a part of me really wants to go, yay, the boxing mini game, it's just rock, paper, scissors. It's RNG.
Oh, interesting. So there's no skill involved.
No, in the original version of the boxing mini game, where you can uppercut or low sweep the leg and stuff, it was just RNG. You pressed a button and hoped that, rock beats scissors.
Wow.
In the new one, in Rebirth, it's Punch Out.
Oh, that's so good. I like that. Actually sounds really fun. It just sounds really fun and good.
It's Punch Out, but with frame buffering. You can pause buffer it.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's funny.
They allow it.
That's funny. That's really funny. That's crazy. Okay. Well, I guess they figured it's just a mini game. That's just a mini game. It's fine. Let them. You can cheat your way through if you want.
Yeah. Man, you have to play Rebirth at some point. They added something that is... I don't want to say it elevates it over the original game, but...
Wow.
As somebody who does not like Final Fantasy VIII and tried super hard, but loves Triple Triad and is going out of her way to try to collect all the cards in 14. Oh man, they made a new card game. And it's addictive. And if they ever make a physical copy, I'm screwed.
Did they make a card game for 14?
They made so that in 14 you can play Triple Triad and collect cards.
Oh boy.
Much like in 8.
Boy.
And there's even a mount for collecting all the cards. There's a floating card magic carpet. But in 7 Rebirth, they added a card game to Final Fantasy VII.
Wow.
And it is one of the greatest things that Square ever did. And if they make a physical copy, they will get my money.
You're doomed. That's the end of it.
Oh yeah, I'm dead.
That's so good. Next up on the show is Matt and Geoff of the Fun and Games podcast, where they discuss making friends through Final Fantasy VII and some comments on the original versus the remake. Geoff, you mentioned that you made friends through Final Fantasy VII. I'd love to hear some of those recollections if you could.
I mean, for one thing, I was already well established as a nerd in my school system, so at least once, a kid that I kind of talked to, called my house to get help with Final Fantasy VII. I remember talking somebody through the train graveyard. Because, 6th grade, that actually was confusing as hell.
It was tricky, yeah.
It was tricky. But in particular, one of my lifelong friends, we were very much, we were in sports for reasons that nowadays mystify me. We were very much outfield children. And I know this because that's where they put us during the tryouts in that league to see whether you're on the good teams or the bad teams. And so I'm in the outfield, and there's this kid also in the outfield who is wearing a Final Fantasy VII shirt and a hat for the local laser tag arena. And I basically was like, you look like a walking advertisement for all the shit I love. I'm Geoff. And yeah, no, that was 6th grade, and that was my friend Kieran. He and I have I am now Uncle Geoff to his kids.
Oh,
we
awesome.
see each other pretty regularly, and I do have about half of his old video game collection in my collection now. But also, he introduced me to a lot of cool PS1 RPGs. He's the reason I fell in love with Final Fantasy Tactics. He introduced me to it. He gave me a lot of his old guidebooks for things, so I actually knew what the hell I was doing in a bunch of these games. And as well as returning the favor, he discovered how much I really liked grinding in RPGs. And so he gave me his memory card for the weekend to be like, I'm towards the end, but I don't think I'm strong enough. See what you can do. I still have that file.
Nice.
I went to town on it. And over the weekend, I got everybody their level 4 limit break. I maxed out a bunch of materia. I, through sheer leveling, got a full set of master materia and then beat Emerald and Ruby Weapon. Not that weekend, but like over the like course of a month, because again, I was 11, 12. What job did I have to do? I have ADHD. I wasn't doing my homework. I was playing Final Fantasy VII.
That's awesome. That is so cool. And you still have a connection with Kieran. That's really great. I
do.
love that. That's great. I love those little stories of connections through games. And the more I do this Final Fantasy series, especially when these single player ones, the more I'm realizing how communal it really was anyway.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't think
all the
that.
rumors that went on with this one, and everybody trying to figure stuff out. Another friend of mine that I've lost touch with had a Game Shark, and we just kept breaking the game. I saw my first developer room in Final Fantasy VII.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Made no sense to us. We had no idea what we were doing, but we'd break pyramids and level up, and we liked being level 99, so, you know.
Nice. That's great. That's very cool. Very, very cool. Matt, what about you? Did you have any friends who were into it or like connections like that?
So my lifelong friend Matt Karen, who I've known since we were both in, I think he was in first grade and I was in second grade. And we've known each other since then. And he was the one who I was talking about earlier who got a copy of 7 for his PlayStation. I didn't have a PlayStation yet, and we just sat together while he played it. And like we'd pass the controller back and forth. I'd get to like do some of the battles, but I mostly just watched him because I didn't understand how materia or any of this other stuff worked. And so we spent long days and nights just playing that game together, playing mini games together. It came full circle 2 years ago, whenever it was, when Remake came out and he finally got to play it. Like, we were on the phone a bunch and he was just saying, I can't believe they did this. Oh, this version of Yuffie is so much better than the other one. And like just reminiscing about how much we love the original game and like what we do love and don't love about the remake. And like he is a ending hater of Remake. I love the ending of Remake, but like I like that we still talk about games so much to this day, Mass Effect, whatever else, and it's because of that bond from back then, from playing games like Resident Evil 2 in the dark together. And the first time Mr. X came through the wall and we almost jumped through the ceiling. The games like Final Fantasy VII forged our specific friendship, and like to the point now where he texted me the other day, hey, did you know there's a Devil May Cry anime coming out? And I was like, yeah, I do know, but thank you for mentioning it, like, because he remembers I love those games.
That's awesome.
So yeah, and it definitely, like, we've been playing games since before that because we'd known each other so long, but I feel like Final Fantasy VII was one of those first games that we like got lost in together and really kind of bonded our friendship.
If you were to talk to somebody of your age or even younger, probably come from someone younger, who says, do I have to play Final Fantasy VII? I'll just play the remake. Do I have to play the original? What would you say to that person in support of playing the original? I think the remakes are complementary pieces.
Yeah.
I don't think they're replacements to the original. But what rationale or reasoning would you give to somebody to play this for the first time, like even like on like the original remake or on the Steam version? That's the original. Like, what would you say?
I mean, I think for me, my pitch would be that the remake and Rebirth, because they have different names now, and whatever Re3 is, they'll just call it Re3. That's perfect. The Rilogy.
The Rilogy.
The Rilogy.
It's taking a microscope to it, right? And you're getting an appreciation for these characters in these moments that you can appreciate if you've never played. And I know folks who've only played the remake trilogy or the duology at this point and appreciate it. But it's for the same reason that I say you have to start with Yakuza 0 when you play the Yakuza franchise. It's not required. Geoff didn't start there. Geoff started with Like a Dragon. There are other jumping in points, but starting with 0 means you understand these characters. So when you get to The Man Who Erased His Name, which is one of my favorites in the series because of how it ends, the impact is in full. And I feel like Remake and Rebirth are the same. You will appreciate them because they're spectacles and they're done well, but I think you will truly love them if you give the original a chance first. Also, like, my other pitch would be, the new versions have accessibility options. They have done a great job of adding ways to turn off random battles, to make your limit break fill, like all of these other things that make games that are a struggle easier for other folks. The reason I got through Final Fantasy IX on the Switch is because I could turn off random battles towards the end of the game to just get to where I needed to. There's a thing where you press on one of the thumbsticks and you do max damage automatically. And so if I'm stuck on a boss fight and I really just want to see how the game ends, I can do that. The important thing about Final Fantasy VII is its story. The other stuff it does is great. One of my favorite combat and magic systems in games. I love the materia system. But I think the narrative is what's worth experiencing, because the materia system in the new games is great also. Comparable, I'd say, if not better, because they do some really unique things with it. But I think there's something about this original version that if you just jump to the remakes, the remakification of it, you'll miss something. It's not like an absolute loss. It's not absolute zero. You can still appreciate those new games. But I think if you want the full experience of what Final Fantasy VII has to offer, play 7, play Crisis Core, then play the remake.
I think if you don't play Dirge of Cerberus first,
I have such a soft spot for that game. It's so bad.
I know. Me too. It's so good. It's so bad. It is better than history says.
That's true.
Okay.
Is it a game that I think people need to go back and play? Not necessarily. There's some cool there are some cool progression systems in there. There's actually some cool gameplay ideas, and it is a fun supplementary piece. But seriously, I will say I echo Matt's sentiment that if you just want to play Remake, Rebirth, Retake the Planet, whatever they're going to call the third one, that's fine and that's great. But yeah, it is built on the idea of pushing off of the anchor that is the original. And so you can still watch the trajectory, but if you want to see where it started and what it's trying to do against, then that's good. I played Final Fantasy VII not knowing how much of Final Fantasy V it actually cribbed until I played Final Fantasy V a few years ago. And I still love both games. And so that's a point in favor if you don't have to. But there's no maps. There's no quest markers. And I love those. But it allows also for a sense of discovery. Because again, I think the pieces are all there. I've done a lot in Final Fantasy VII. If there is a single game that I can gun to my head, give a 3-hour TED Talk about, it would be Final Fantasy VII. I've still never done any optional Fort Condor battles.
Interesting.
But you could go and play them. Yeah. One day I'll go. I've never gotten Yuffie's joke weapon. I've gotten everybody else's. I've gotten the umbrella for Aerith. But that's Gold Saucer. And that's a shoot 'em up that happens in the middle of things. So let's have fun with that. So there is something to discover there. And because the remakes are built with guardrails in mind. Not to say that you can't break it, but to say we've had years to think about this. So all of the weird little corners of the original are so fun to explore and so interesting to see the holes in the jank and the rough, ragged edges. The materia system out of any progression system is probably my favorite to break. And not in a way that makes you all powerful, but in a way that can make all kinds of just ridiculous things happen. The materia system is one of the most interesting distillations of the job class system of old and of new that Final Fantasy has done that lets you kind of pop a few rocks into your equipment and suddenly you've changed jobs, and also mixing and matching and specializing. I had the Versus Books strategy guide to Final Fantasy VII. And that in the back had all kinds of cool, they called them crazy materia combos. And one pointed out that linked materia, if it's linked to multiple instances of the same spell, all of them will trigger when you cast that spell. So if you have fire linked to all materia, linked to quadra magic, linked to added cut, linked to steel as well, and you've leveled them all up to fire 2. One casting of Fire 2 will go off 4 times, hit everybody, you will hit everybody, and steal from everybody. One casting only costs you what Quadra Magic would do. Is that a good idea? I don't know, but can you do it? Yes.
Yes.
And so there can be little bits of that exploration in the remakes, but they've kind of done a really good job of making materia feel precious in those games, in the remakes, and letting certain things be interesting. But in moving away from that, it's a little different. And then on a personal note, enemy skill materia is my favorite instance of blue magic in all of Final Fantasy, and I love blue magic. That's not for everybody to convince you, but I'm just sharing love here.
That's fair. That's fair. And I know people. If you like blue magic, you love blue magic. I know it's like a type of person. It's just like it's like a astrological sign. You're just inclined to just really dig blue magic. I think that's really fun and really good.
I love job classes in Final Fantasy. I love them. But if I am ever saying there's something better than blue mages or monks, someone has murdered me and taken my skin and is out walking around as me, because that is no longer me.
It's Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and they didn't do their research. They didn't look at your save file. They have no idea.
I throw away weapons, and I want to get hit with the weirdest spell so I can cast them.
Time once again to say thank you to the following amazing individuals who support A Gamer Looks at 40 on Patreon. Starting with Lindsay Harney, Philip Becker, Joey Coro, Terry Kinnair, Greg Stewart of the Player One podcast and Generation 16 series of videos, Games with Coffee, The Let's Play Princess, BT Goebbels, Tim Knowles, formerly of The Elitist, Julian of the Stage Select Podcast, Seth Sergel of the All End Media Network, and finally the editor extraordinaire, Pete Harney. If you would like to join these wonderful humans in their financial support of A Gamer Looks at 40, swing on over to patreon.com/A Gamer Looks at 4040. Check out the tiers and sign up today. And if not, no big deal. A rating or review on your pod player of choice is always greatly appreciated. Let's jump back into the episode. Coming up next is one of many Mikes. The first Mike on our list is the one and only Mike Albertin of Games My Mom Found, good friend of the show, and I think good friend in general. We've been doing podcast stuff for years and years now, and I'm always lucky when he shows up and chats with me. It's always a good time with some really good stories. This week, we discuss some unofficial players guides, some movie spin-offs, and something called Before Crisis that was recorded so long ago, I don't even know what that means. So we are going to find out together right here on episode 129. Let's give it a listen. What about the game stuck out to you and you played it? For now, I guess we can just talk about it. So you haven't played it since 2006?
No, I've been meaning to go back to it for games my mom found, but I just haven't been able to get myself to want to put it on the schedule. To be fair.
That's understandable. I mean, that's totally fair.
Don't want to play it again.
No, that's. I was gonna say, what stands out to you about that game? But does anything stand out to you?
I mean, for now, I think it's just the fact that it has such a history in the zeitgeist, and it's so important to so many people that I feel like I should replay it and catalog my experience, because that's what I do now, apparently. But like
that is what you do. That is what
it's
you
just
do.
Not something that I really want to go back to. It wasn't. I'm like, I mean, there's the remake and there's other stuff, but I'm like, I don't know. I just don't. The drive isn't there yet for me. There's other RPGs that I love more from PS1 that won't do as good on the show, but I'd rather replay those, which I have. So,
do you remember how you felt when you first saw Aerith get run through by evil Sephiroth?
Unfortunately, somebody who was flipping through the pages already knew it was coming, so it didn't really bother me that much because I already knew she was going to die. So I'm like, well, we just won't use her then because she's going to die.
Oh, it was so funny. That's right. You had the guide at your side, yeah.
I was also introduced to FF4 before this, where everybody dies. So I'm like, oh, this is just part of the game. Like, it wasn't.
That's very true.
It doesn't.
It's true.
It didn't hit me like a ton of bricks like it should because I'd already played 4 and 6. Well, no one really dies in 6 unless you're stupid and leave Shadow, which I did as a kid. So it just didn't affect me because of 4. So it wasn't a big deal. Plus, I was reading. I read the whole guide front to back more than once before I played this game. So, fear.
No, that makes total sense. That makes sense. I find that very interesting. What other memories of Final Fantasy VII do you have other than Red Lobster? I love that. That's such a good. I like that.
It's so funny because it's like we didn't go that often. I don't remember why we were going. I just remember calling my friend first, going, "Hey, I beat FS7. I beat Sephiroth," and then us leaving and being all excited. I don't really have. I mean, it's a game that's still important to me because it's important to life, but I think also because it's also attached to a memory of an ex that I think less of the game than two, because that can happen because it's very associated with an ex of mine, which I still talk to because she's my son's mother, so we still talk. But I think that's part of it too.
Interesting. I find it's really interesting when games connect up with people in our past. You know, like I think there is something there to be said, and it can definitely color our opinions of the games as well. I think that's natural.
It's also too much hype. I end up I usually will like something less if everybody is telling me it's the greatest thing ever. Especially when I hold 6 to such a high standard, and I think 6 is one of the best games ever for Final Fantasy. And people, because this is brand spanking new at the time it came out, and the fact that it's such a new departure, and it is a lot of people's first RPG and first Final Fantasy that people hold as higher, I guess I get irritated, even though it's irrelevant, but...
Yeah. So when you finally did get it, and finally start playing it, obviously you were blown away by the graphics. Did a lot of the story go over your head as a 9-year-old / 10-year-old?
I don't know, because
Okay.
I don't remember. I went back to this game later on, so I can't remember my initial memories of the story.
Gotcha.
I also was reading the guide, so everything was to me in a book too.
Right, sure. Everything was kind of spelled out, and you're just kind of following along with the guide.
I read the guides front and back before I even had the game.
I love the fact you had both the official and the unofficial guide too. That's pretty great.
The unofficial came with a badass poster that I framed.
Yep.
Years later, I framed it in 2009.
Oh, that's cool.
Or 8. No, maybe 07. But I mean, 10 years later, I framed it. Unfortunately, I lost it in one of my moves, and I'm still upset about
No. Well, if you find that guide, you can find it on eBay. You can get one for $190. The 1997 vintage unauthorized Final Fantasy VII Ultimate Guide.
There's also errors in that poster, by the way. The poster is partly the cover, but there are errors in the drawing that aren't accurate to what came out, but I don't remember what they are, but I know there were errors.
That's pretty legit. That's pretty fun. How fun is that? Yeah,
I love
and then
that
of course
poster. I actually, when my ex-girlfriend moved back to the place where I used to live, because I used to live with her family, I asked her at one point, hey, that poster's still around? She's like, no, I haven't seen it. I'm like, God damn. She's like, that's mine anyway. I'm like, no, it doesn't matter. But she didn't have it, so I'm like, sure it is. I'm taking it. If it's there, I'll come visit you. But she never saw it, so it got thrown away, most likely.
That's a bummer. That is a total
But
bummer.
I was a little sad, because I was like, I want to put this up.
Yeah. Put up, so that's a really cool little piece of memorabilia. I'm trying to find an actual picture of said poster. I'm finding some. I don't know. But anyway.
But yeah, I haven't seen it ever since. Besides that, it's just from that guide.
Yeah, we can talk about. I've seen Advent Children. It's been we talk Advent Children. I mean, I don't know where I'm going to fit it in, but we can definitely just talk about it.
I don't have a whole lot, but with Advent Children, I remember that I had pre-ordered it at one GameStop in Mall of America, but then I was moving back to Wisconsin, so I was leaving Minnesota. I remember I think we either had to get our $5 back, because $5 was a lot of time when I didn't have any money.
Yeah.
And then I remember, so then I moved I remember they were upset. I'm like, no, I'm still going to get it. I just have to go to a different GameStop. And then I remember reserving it there at a GameStop near me, and I got it the day it came out. I think DVDs. I don't think I wouldn't have had a Blu-ray at the time yet. And I watched it a couple times with my girlfriend at the time, because she loved the movie. I haven't seen it since then as a kid. I want to go back and watch it again. It actually was in theaters earlier this year, and I was going to go, but it was on a Thursday. It was on a day where I was already recording. So I was like, well, I guess I'll just record and not go, because my wife's like, I don't really care about this. And I thought about it, I was like, well, she'll go with me anyway. I dragged her to all sorts of movies, but I was recording, so I'm like, well, I'll just record instead. Fuck it. So I haven't seen it again since, but I do want to watch it at some point. But I remember the movie just being super cool, and it exists.
I remember it being very visually overstimulating. I remember it just being, again, not somebody who not knowing this. And I think I saw it. I'm pretty sure I saw it after I had played it played Final Fantasy VII for the first time when I was like 28 or 29. Like I played Final Fantasy VII on the PS3. It was one of the classics the downloaded classics PS1 classics on the PS3. And I played it there, and then I was like, let me watch Advent Children. And I remember watching this like, what is happening in this movie? I remember being very confused, especially since I just played Final Fantasy VII. I was like, okay, I know these characters, but nothing is like hitting me. I feel like I'm just getting assaulted. My senses are getting assaulted. Did I do a review of that?
It's very much I might have just cool action scene. That's what that movie is. And by the way, it's currently on YouTube, apparently.
No, is it really?
So I wasn't looking for it, but I found it. But I have not. I do want to rewatch it. I want to cover it again, or I want to cover it for the first time. My big excitement with it when it came out was I was hoping that we would get an FF7 sequel, that we would get more, and we never did. I want to say in the timeline, Dirge, I think Dirge happens after, but I cannot remember anymore. But unfortunately, like after Dirge and Crisis Core and Advent Children, like FF7 just, we never got more. I mean, we got the remake now, but they're essentially retreading old ground, but different. But
I was reviewing movies at the time, so okay. I actually have a review of Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. I reviewed it on April 8th, 2011. Which tracks. That's when I was writing a lot of reviews at the time. I gave it a 5 out of 10. I gave it a 5.
You might have not known this. There also is an OVA called The Last Order Final Fantasy VII that came out around the same time that Advent Children came out, which is also canon, which is a story about Zack and Cloud. It's a 30-minute OVA that came out that I didn't see till years later.
Right. That
kind of just shows some of the stuff that happened to them at Nibelheim, which is in the game, but you get more of it. Again, it was all during this resurgence when I really thought we'd get more, and then it must have not done good enough in marketing because we didn't get more. But it's a really cool anime if you're in love with FF7. It's also on YouTube.
Gotcha. So Advent Children came out after Spirits Within.
Yes.
It was this. Okay. What I saw Spirits Within too. I don't remember anything about it. I remember nothing about Spirits Within.
It came out in 2001. I like that movie actually. I appreciate it for what it is.
I don't remember a thing about it.
It's not Final Fantasy. I mean, let's take a science fiction property. Let's take a property, throw a cool name on it that's known, and just produce something.
I'll give you my last line of the review I wrote. I'm looking at it now as we speak. I keep everything. It says, in the end, Advent Children succeeds only on the nostalgia of the viewer, and as much as I enjoyed seeing Cloud and the crew together for one more battle in the live stream against the evil Sephiroth, I can't honestly recommend this movie unless you know what the hell a Sephiroth is in the first place.
Yeah, it's a very niche audience. Yeah. You're not wrong. It's not a movie that you can like watch and appreciate. It's a movie made for people that are in that world.
Yeah, and it's just Cloud and Tifa and the Turks. That's right. Oh man, I'm just like looking at this.
Those aren't the Turks. I mean, the Turks are in it, but that's not. If the three guys on motorcycles are not the Turks.
Oh, see, dumb Bill from 2011.
I can't tell you who they are because I don't remember, but I know they're not the Turks. There's something to do with Sephiroth, but I can't remember.
I don't remember.
It's very weird. Dirge of Cerberus talks a little bit about it because I think Dirge takes place. I used to know all this, like what took place in what order. And there's also Crisis Core, which is the prequel to what Zack did, and it talks all, and that's was a PSP only game, then got re-released recently. I don't know if anyone else will mention this. There also is a mobile Japan only game called I think it's called Ever Crisis, which I have played a little of. Yep. No, Ever Crisis is the current mobile game that just came out that is on Steam and PC, which I did not play very much of. But there's a mobile game that came out, which is, God, I cannot find the name. I apologize. Maybe it was Ever Crisis before that they remade it. But all I know, you play as the Turks. I actually had downloaded an RPG maker of that game, which adds story that fits into FF7 from before 7 starts. And I was playing a bunch of it, but then it crashed on me. But that also exists out there too, which I don't know if anyone else ever mentioned that it's a thing. So I wanted to put it on there. Never came to America though, unfortunately, but it exists.
Okay, that's a thing that exists that you actually hands on.
Impossible to play, at least the original version. It's called Before Crisis for Final Fantasy VII.
Before Crisis.
That's
Okay,
the mobile
gotcha.
game that came out in Japan in 2004 originally, that takes place before the game happens and shows all the Turks, Reno, Rude, Elena. It was a very cool game. The version I played of it, which was a fan-made RPG maker where he tried to remake the game as close as he could, which then froze on me and wouldn't work anymore. So, yeah, yes. But that
As homebrews will do, yes.
I was very upset, by the way. I was actually going to put it on my podcast, but I couldn't. It crashed. I'm like, well, I can't finish playing this, so I guess we're done.
Yeah.
I was trying to put it together. I had a friend that was going to do it with me, and I was like, this is going to happen.
That's cool. The second of our three mics is Mike of the Distorted Illuminations YouTube channel, also known as the Mad Monarch. I've been on his show, I think, once or twice at this point, and he's been on mine a number of times. Big Final Fantasy fan, has a lot of interesting things to say about the series and this game in general. In this conversation, we talk about limit breaks, how Final Fantasy VII is a tonal shift for the series, and while it may not be the best game, it's most definitely the most popular.
What I'll say about 7, I may not be the hugest fan of it. Like, I like it. I understand why that game was important, and why, just in the grand scheme of things, it mattered. It kind of created the modern-day blockbuster title. It's going to have a legacy like very few games is ever going to have.
100%. Yeah, it's supremely important. Like, it is the, you can argue it's the most, maybe not the best Final Fantasy, but it's probably the most important. It's the hinge on which the series changed forever.
And Square Enix is still latching on to that game till this day.
Yep, and nothing has really swung back unless you can count 16's move to like Devil May Cry style mechanics. But even still, you can point a lot of lines back to the original Final Fantasy VII that we're still kind of on that track, for better or for worse, depending on your opinion.
I'll go neutral on that.
Yeah, I think I would too. Actually, I think I would too, because there are still games I love. Like, I really like 14, and I really like 10. I even like 10 too.
I will also say with 7, again, that's why I got that PlayStation. So I'm going to be always at least thankful for the game, because in a sense, without that, I may never have played games like my Wild Arms. Legends of Dragoon was great.
Right.
There's so many good PlayStation RPGs I may have missed out on had it not been for 7 existing.
That's fair. I think that's 1,000% fair. Again, it was extremely influential, and it was one of those games that was just a tentpole that you couldn't ignore, and still can't. We're still on that teat, so to speak. So, which is for better or for worse.
It was kind of that change in just seeing how people in the area I grew up in viewed the game. Because again, my town was like 2,000 to 3,000 people, maybe 4 at the time. I didn't actually know who the other people who were renting out those RPGs at the video shop were. So, for like the entire Super Nintendo era, it seemed like it was me and one other guy I went to school with that played RPGs. Now, the reason you'd probably hear from a lot of people was, oh, just it's guys standing around, the graphics aren't that great. At least if you played other games, there was a lot more action, mobility, and all that. But then Final Fantasy VII came out. Games did not look like that if you played on consoles.
No.
Maybe if you were on PC, you had a couple really high-end games, but just from a visual, like, presentation, you could tell Final Fantasy VII was making changes in how people viewed these games. Like, your RPGs just graphically were now looking better than the other games. Art design, totally. I think they always look just as good, if not better, but...
Agreed.
For sheer graphics, just RPGs became the king because of Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, and Final Fantasy VII was the game that heralded the era that we're probably still in, really, of Final Fantasy being the bleeding edge of graphical fidelity. Like, every Final Fantasy game that comes out, it always looks the best of class on the system it's on. And that's it's been a hallmark of the series ever since 7. So 7, I agree, is the first one where it really was the focus.
But yeah, even in a place as small as I was, you could see that change happening, like in real time. You'd start seeing normal folks who didn't play video games like, oh, I'll check this out.
Interesting. Did you found a lot of that was happening in your even in your small town, in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, it was no longer just like me and the one other guy that could talk and BS about RPGs. More people started getting into it. It was easier to find more people to talk to about my interests.
That's good. Was that a good thing for you, or was that? Yeah, cool. Because I can also see the other side of that being like, hey, there's this thing I love and have loved, and now you're new to it. There can always be some resentment for that as well. So I'm curious how that hit for you. How that hit for you?
I thought it was great.
Cool.
Like,
that's awesome, man.
It was a little frustrating because some of those same people were like, oh, I don't want to try some of those older ones. I mean, look at the graphics. They don't look nearly as good. And there's that part of you that just kind of wants to smack them. But we live in a civilized society, and you can't just do that to everybody. But no, that's also with the whole PlayStation era and getting that system for Final Fantasy VII. I found so many more great RPGs out there. Like, the PlayStation, I think it's close to Super Nintendo in terms of just great RPGs.
You can make that argument, definitely. I think you absolutely can. I mean, I'm not a big PlayStation person. I don't know much of the history, but from what I do know, it definitely had a big RPG renaissance on that console. Next up is not a Mike, but maybe stands for Mike. I don't know, Mike-esque. The one and only Mekel Kasanova, huge Final Fantasy fan that I've been extremely lucky to have on the show. He was an amazing interview, always is, and it's great to chat with him about anything video game related. Mr. Kasanova shares some thoughts on gameplay and some final thoughts. It's simple, but I like it. I love the materia system. I always dug that as a system. I really think it was I love how it was accessible, yet made sense, if that makes sense. It was accessible, yet you could do a lot with it. There was a lot of customization. You could really craft a character. And I'm not somebody who spent a lot of time crafting characters. I don't like to be led along, but I like a path. You know, I don't. It's not something I was really into early on in games, especially of that time. More so now probably than back in the day. But I really love how simple it was to understand. I mean, you really only have weapon, armor, and accessory, right?
Yeah.
That's it. Like, that's all you got. So they really stripped away a lot of the friction of a traditional RPG, but still kept the flexibility where you really could craft a character to your specifications and not screw it up. Like, you really can't. You could just randomly put materia into things and be just fine. I mean, you could just be fine. So I really appreciate that system. What was your take on it?
I got deep into that system because,
did you see? Yeah. Yep.
You know, because like it literally, you could make any character really play any role. I mean, with the exception of Aerith, because, well, I don't know about you, but like I maxed her out, I got her final limit break and everything. I was so mad. Like, I spent all that time grinding for her. And I remember all the rumors and all the misinformation from magazines and forums. Like, oh, yeah, you know, you want to get her back? You just have to go and do this side quest and go do that. Oh, you want to recruit Sephiroth? Yeah, just go to what is it? What is the place called? What is that casino called?
Gold Saucer.
Gold Saucer. Go there, get the 135th or 125th soldier, get the Masamune. You got to go through that roller coaster so many times and get so many of them. Then you got to go over to this place, and man, myself at that time did all of that.
You did everything. You did everything. Oh man, you were chasing.
Anyway, I know. I was, but. I love the fact that you could literally take any of these characters, and if you wanted to build them out, like if you wanted Cloud to be a bit of a red mage, or you wanted him to be a healer, you could kit him out to be that. If you wanted Tifa to be I don't know, more of a healer, or just straight up she just demolishes
DPS. There's a DPS and just
literally. You know,
you can do that, right?
You get like, and it was. I feel like the first Final. It was the first Final Fantasy that really didn't have set or completely set character classes. Yuffie is still trash no matter what you did. I don't care. I can die on this hill. She was trash. I was so mad when I finally got her, and I'm like, oh, you just useless. And Kate Sith were completely useless to me.
Yeah. You get them kind of late. That's a problem in those, like, kind of.
Yeah, and then like Vincent was. Sid. Hey, Sid's a trigger. That jump ability.
Yeah, it's cool.
But yeah, I mean, the fact that you can custom kit it out with the different materia, and then you had these materia slots that link, so you could if you put, say, a support materia on your weapon with a certain magic, like say if it's ice or fire or lightning or bio, you could literally do that additional damage upon hitting your enemy. Or if you put it in your armor and it also had linking slots, then you could also use that to be a buff. So like literally, if you knew what you were going up against, you could literally kit out every character a certain way to where you're just like tank, like you could tank hits and it's like doing nothing. So
yeah,
like,
which is great. And again, I really enjoyed the flexibility, and I love when a system allows people like you to really dive in and learn the system and kit out, or let people who are more casual like myself just enjoy it. Just like, I just want to, I want to make my character stronger, and it doesn't matter as much. Man, any last minute other thoughts about Final Fantasy VII before we close up, man? This was awesome as always. Well, here's this. So let's do it this way. So you mentioned earlier that there are people who are saying you can play, and we're going to talk about the remakes later on down the line because I still have to play them, and I do want to include them in this game. And I want to have my own experience with them before I even really touch on them. But there are people who say you can play the remakes and you don't really need the original. What would you say to those people? And you started that look on your face. You started that conversation a little bit, but I'd love for you to like use that as a platform or as a springboard to kind of like why Final Fantasy VII is still worth playing today, even though we now have 2B3 remake games and all the rest of it. Like, what would you say to that person? And kind of like summing up your final thoughts on Final Fantasy VII with using that as like a context, as a framework. Oh, I asked you to do the hard stuff because I know you can do it. That's why I got faith in you, man. I know you can do it.
So, oh man, okay, sit up for this one.
That's all.
So, for those of you who tell people to just play the remakes and skip the original, don't worry about the compilation, you are doing a disservice to these characters that, while not entirely the best written in Final Fantasy, they have a lot of depth, and there's a lot of things a lot of people can relate to, and self-insert to a lot of these characters. People who are struggling with mental health and challenges, by telling them, hey, skip the original and just go to remake. You're not going to understand a lot of the context and the struggle of Cloud, and understanding that this is someone who grew up isolated, alone, didn't have friends, was picked on, like the popular girl next door, did things to get her attention, tried to go and impress her to be a soldier, only to fail and go home and be ashamed to, show that, hey, I didn't make it, even though I talked and said I would. A lot of us can relate to that. A lot of us lived that, I can completely relate to that. I've struggled with mental health. I've, things that I wanted to do and I said I was going to do as a kid, only to fail at it. Oh yeah, I'm going to be a scientist. Oh yeah, that worked out well. Relating to that, or being someone who's super optimistic about, this new industry coming in to your town or your country or your city or whatever, only for that to really gentrify and take away from you, like it did for Barrett and Coraltown.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Wow.
Just there's so much that you're not going to get by just skipping it. And I know that that's kind of a thing a lot of people now say when it comes to if something gets a remake or something gets something new. Oh, you don't need to watch the original. Just watch the new thing. You lose the director's vision, and you also are robbing yourself of an experience that could be something that sits with you for the rest of your life. It's like people who say, "Oh, don't read these books, just watch the movie." There's so much that you miss if you just don't do that. Like, I think we all need to just take opportunities if we have the time and the availability and the accessibility to do so, to just experience things from different time periods. I mean, if you're a modern gamer, go back and play something from a generation or 2 or 3 or 4, depending on how old you are when you were born, and learn how we got to where we are now. Because the deeper, oh man, I'm getting deep in the woods on this one. But the deeper thing that you are telling people, and it's a disservice, is that you don't need to learn about the past and how things happen and how we got to here. Just look at what's now. Because if you don't know the past, you're doomed to repeat it. And that's a deeper subcontext I'm going with. But, that's like if people forgot history. They're like, oh, yeah, you don't need to know about that. Oh, then eventually you're going to end up here. You need to know, even if not entirely everything, you need to have context. You need to know, hey, you know what? This is the story. This is the game. This is what happened. Oh, why does it look like that? Why does it play like that? Okay, this is the directors and let's do a tier. This is their vision for it. This is what they were going for. This is the hardware that they had. This is as far as it could get with it. But we can still appreciate, even with the limitations, this is the story they were trying to tell. And it's not always about the graphics. It's not always about the gameplay. If a story is great, it will sit with you. I don't care how people, if modern people don't want to play Final Fantasy VI, I'm going to always come back to Final Fantasy VI because, it's 2D graphics. That story sticks with you. It is no question. Good.
No question.
It is such a great experience. Even going back to it, I go back to it multiple times a year. The Returners, I love that group. That story is so good. And it's like, when you're people are like, oh, there's no voice acting with the original Final Fantasy VII. Okay, well, let your imagination craft that for you. Why is there so many random battles? You want to know why? And I saw somebody who played Remake first, and they went back and played the original, and they complained about the random battles. And why would they have random battles in games back then? Because these games were not very long. That's why. It was to artificially lengthen the experience. They have an RNG set up every so many steps, so much time. Boom, here's a random battle. That's why.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and if you don't go back and experience that or look into it, you would never know. It was also due to the limitations. So go ahead.
No, I was just going to dovetail a little bit off of what you say, because very well said, by the way. One thing that always sticks out to me, what you just said, was it's so important to appreciate the past because it gives you a better appreciation of the now. Like, yes. I am trying to instill that in my 8-year-old, right? Like, he's playing Breath of the Wild right now, but he has played Link to the Past before. Like, he started with those, and now he's playing Breath of the Wild, and he enjoys it and all that. I told him the other day, I'm like, man, I can't wait till you play Final Fantasy VI. He's like, what's that, Daddy? I'm like, oh, dude, you don't even know. You don't even know. I think you're gonna love it. So my son's his biggest gaming flex is that he has beaten Donkey Kong Country. He beat when he was like 6.
Oh, that's like easy either.
That's a flex, and that, mind you, on the Switch, it's a little bit. He had some help with the rewind. Listen, it's all right, but still. So I totally dig what you're saying, because I think a good example of that with my son is we saw the original Star Wars trilogy about a few months ago, and luckily I live in the Austin, Texas area where we have an awesome movie theater called the Alamo Draft House, and there's a bunch of them now around the country, but we have 6 Alamo Draft Houses because they started in Austin. And they were showing the original trilogy in theaters. So I got to take my son to see the original trilogy in theaters. It was one a week. And he had seen the first one at home, and he had never seen Empire or Jedi. And he got to see them in the theater for the first time. And dude, loved it. Loved it like it was released last week. Loved it. He's awesome. Loved it. So there is definitely something to be said for that historical context. I'm glad that you brought up that, and especially when it comes to human history in general. Like, we don't know it, we are going to be doomed to repeat it, and it's just cool to see where things came from.
Yeah.
And finally, rounding out the episode is Mekel K. Hughes of the Capes and Junk podcast, where he discusses some other gameplay mechanics, mini games, some thoughts on the remake, and some final thoughts on Final Fantasy VII. And then we wrap the entire series up in a bow with the ever insightful Wade, aka Professor Noctis, on YouTube and on Twitch. Music, of course, is awesome. The music's great. I mean, that shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. That's not a hot take, but the music is fantastic. Were there any moments that you remember really, again, not going to be story beats, it could just be gameplay beats as well, because the game has a lot of opportunities for other gameplay. I forgot how many little side, like all these little things, like the snowboarding, and even beyond the gold saucer, like.
Oh yeah, because like even the gold saucer mini games are repeats of things you've done, like using the motorcycle to protect the truck when you're fleeing Midgar, or the tower defense thing. I can't remember the name of the area, and I know listeners are screaming at me right now. It's not Cosmo Canyon, but it's something like that. It's one of them. Fort Condor.
Fort Condor, that's it.
Yeah. Just like, yeah, you're right. They just every at least once an hour or two you're doing something completely different, whether it's Cloud walking through the parade and failing miserably in my case, or stuff like that.
And I really appreciate it for that. It really breaks things up. You can have a nice slap fight. That's always fun.
It's like the end of Metal Gear Solid 4.
Yeah, it really is. I don't think I have it in me to do a Metal Gear Solid series. I've played all of them. I've played most of them. I've played and finished most of them. I had a weird bug in my ear many years ago, where I was like, I'm going to play all the Metal Gear Solid games and beat them. I don't know why. I spent like the better part of a year doing it.
There's more than you think too when you sit down.
There really is.
It's like, oh shit!
I picked up that remake, that the HD set. So I was just going through those, the Kojima ones, and they range from very good to fine.
Yeah.
But anyway, but I don't know if I had it in me to do a Metal Gear Solid series. I mean, who knows? Maybe.
That'd be a lot. That's a lot of story. Like, it's more than Final Fantasy.
This is Final Fantasy thing is souring me on. Well, the next one's going to be Metroid. That's the next one. But Metroid is pretty small. That won't be a year's worth of chaos. This is like Final Fantasy. I bit off way more than I can chew with this. Anyway, how do you like the remakes?
I've only played the first one. It's okay. Like, it's trades turn-based combat for more of a kind of Devil May Cry action-y take on it, and I wasn't quite about that as much. I'd rather just have good old-fashioned turn-based.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I played I haven't played 16 yet either. I played the demo. And I had the same feeling. I don't like Devil May Cry. I don't like these games. So, I'm not sure how much I'm going to dig this too much. I will play it eventually, but
yeah, I tried to play 15 a few times. It's like, man, I just cannot get into this.
Yeah, tough. It is tough for sure. I like 14 though. I had 6 months where I played a lot of 14.
It's one of those rabbit holes I can't let myself go down.
I've never played Final Fantasy an MMO before. I'd never done it because I know myself, and it was a period of time where the company I was working for was working from home. This is pre-COVID, and the company was not doing well. And if you're a support person for a company that has no new customers and no one using your software, you got a lot of time in your hands sitting at home doing nothing. So I spent a lot of time playing Final Fantasy 14 rather. So a 6 month period, I was putting in like at least 4 hours a day because I had nothing else to do. So I was like, all right, no kids. So I want to play Final Fantasy 14.
That's awesome.
Yep. So I'll talk about that. Who knows? I mean, 3 years at this point, the way this series is going.
How far are you going? Are you going up through 16?
I don't know. I might stop at 10. I'm considering like, am I really going to go all the way to 16? But I figure if I'm going to go to 10, because I have to go to 10.
Yeah, at least 10. And then maybe gauge people's thoughts on 12, see if you can fill an episode.
See where I'm at. Yeah, see kind of where I'm at, because maybe I can just leave it at the retro, the ones that are considered retro at this point. And 12 is considered retro still, I guess. Kind of. And it was re-released on the PS4, right?
Yeah, the Zodiac age.
Zodiac was 4. So I don't know. We'll see. So yeah, man, Final Fantasy 7. Any other thoughts on it? Any other recollections of it? Things that you thought were impactful or interesting?
I guess to answer your question earlier of what kept me going is just like finally beating it, saying that I could beat Final Fantasy 7 because it's one of those Hallmark games that quote unquote everyone should play. So it was a nice personal achievement to finally beat it.
Do you think Final Fantasy 7 is more important than it is good?
I don't think it's as important as Square seems to think it is.
Interesting. Okay.
Because, I mean, like I said earlier, it's one of those ones that, like, at the time there was nothing like it. I personally think that's why, say, GoldenEye and Halo were so popular, is because as far as home console shooters were, co-op shooters or multiplayer, there was just nothing like it. So you look back at GoldenEye today, even when the HD thing released this year, and people are like, "Oh, this game's kind of ass." It's like, yeah, but at the time there was nothing like it, so it was huge, right. And Halo had the online and all that. So at the time, yes. Nowadays, like there are a dozen games that do a lot of this stuff better, except Materia, because for some reason no game can do anything like that. Even Remake doesn't do Materia the same way.
So good at crafting these stories, and as the technology and the presentation becomes even more, you begin to feel it. I mean, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about when I was 14 years old, right? And I play Final Fantasy 7. You know, I mean, of course, the moment of moments in video game history. You know, I mean, whether you like 7 or not, that is one of the most, if not the most iconic moment in all video games. I put it up there with pulling the Master Sword out of the stone in Zelda. And so, you know, this was before the days of the internet. You had to go into chat rooms and discussion boards to really go through that. And I'm playing through this game, and I liked Aerith a lot. Like, I mean, I'm not a shipper by any means. Let's not get into that nonsense. But
no, we won't.
I really had a deep love for these characters because they were so believable in a way that I had not experienced in a game before. And so when she is killed, quite gruesome. I mean, not like grotesque graphically, but just like visually, it's like, oh my goodness, these are not sprites anymore, but you see the blade, you see her hunch over, and you see the pain in the characters' faces. I was leveled. I mean, I remember playing through that, getting through the next boss, hitting the end of disc 1. Do you want to save your game? I stopped the game and I called my best friend. And I gosh, this was an amazing moment. Called my best friend because I knew he was playing through it as well. I was like, "Hey, where are you?" He said, "Yeah, I've just gotten to this place called like the Forgotten Capital." I was like, "Okay, just put me on like speakerphone because I'm going to sit through it with you." And he played through that scene with me on the phone. And as soon as it happened, he's like screaming, and he and I share that memory, and then we process it together. I mean, want to talk about an amazing 14-year-old experience.
Wow.
You know, and it's like, is there any way we're doing all the things that the internet currently does, right? We're saying, do you think there's a way to save her? Is there a way to get her back? What happens? What happens when you die? And then we're starting to ask these big existential questions, you know? And it's like, what has this game done to us? And, you know, that however many decades later, 27 years later, we're still asking those questions about that moment.
Really, yeah. And it's amazing. It's great you had that communal experience.
Oh,
that's so good. What a wonderful, wow, to have to share that with somebody and walk through them with it. That's really cool.
Yeah, again, it was just so crazy because we were both trying to play kind of at the same pace or whatever, and so I just got there first, called him first thing, and like he's playing through it, and what a memory that was for us.
That's amazing. That's so fun and so good.
Yeah,
I love that. And that does it for the Final Fantasy VII series. Whoosh! Nothing will go as long as that, I promise, from here on out as we continue our exploration of the Final Fantasy series. If you've been hanging this far, thank you so much for doing so. It's greatly appreciated. Your support is appreciated. And please tell a friend or tell someone you know about this series. This is an exhaustive podcast journey where people share stories you don't really hear on a lot of other podcasts. So please tell your friends if they are like-minded in their Final Fantasy VII fandom. Next week, we have a Tales from the Bargain Bin to spice things up, so be sure to come on back for that. Many thanks to my editors, Pete Harney and Kev from the Discord. Double thanks to my patrons for their continued patronage. And thanks to you for listening to this edition of A Gamer Looks at 40. And until next time, just be kind to yourselves and each other.